Dorien Thomas was a 9-year-old boy who lived on the lower-class side of Amarillo, Texas. The area was not the nicest or safest place to live. Sometime in late 1997 or early 1998, Dorien and one of his friends happened across the dead body of a prostitute while they were out playing. 35-year-old Linda Jackson had been found partially clothed in the 3100th block of North Wilson. Lieutenant Gary Troop with Potter Randall Special Crimes stated that sometimes they are doing these things because of hardships that people don't understand. They don't deserve to be murdered because of an occupation they chose. It may put them more so in a position than other people, but it doesn't give someone the right to kill somebody. The police believe that Linda had been picked up in someone's vehicle and later killed by that same person, but the identity of this mysterious killer is unknown to this day. In August of 1997, a second prostitute was found dead, but this time the body was in a field behind the North Branch YMCA. In a similar fashion to Linda's body, 45-year-old Gloria Covington was partially clothed when the police found her. She had been stabbed multiple times in her upper body. According to Lieutenant Troop, we don't know for sure if she was out there walking or if she may have been in a motor vehicle of some kind. There was tire tracks seen out there. It was obvious Gloria was able to run or walk away for a little bit of time after she was injured due to the trail that she left before she actually collapsed and died. During the initial stages of the investigation, the police did have several persons of interest, but they never made any arrests, and this murder also remains unsolved to this day. It has been speculated that the murders of Linda and Gloria could have been connected due to both women having the same profession and both being found dead in the same general area. On October 26th of 1998, Dorien Thomas went for a bike ride to his friend's house. At some point during this ride, he suddenly and inexplicably vanished. To this day, Dorien has never been found alive or dead. In fact, his bicycle has also never been found. Brandon Thomas has been coping with the disappearance of his brother for years. I just have those moments where I break down, like wipe my tears and keep them moving. I got kids and stuff. I can't just be down and out about it all the time. Back in December of 2023, the police received a tip about bones that had been found in a field at Hastings and Smelter in Amarillo. The police dug up the bones and determined that they were not human, which means that Dorien's case is still wide open. Of course, we're a little dismayed. We're a little sad as usual, but we're not going to give up, and we hope that APD doesn't give up. There are 3 main theories about what happened to Dorien that fateful day in October of 1998. The first suggests that he may have been the victim of a serial killer who was known to be operating in that area at the time. John Ballantine murdered 3 teenagers in Amarillo by shooting them in the head while they slept. However, this theory is not very likely. Ballantine's modus operandi was to murder white teens while they slept, but Dorien Thomas was a black preteen who had been riding his bicycle. The details simply don't add up for this theory. The second theory is that Dorien's disappearance had something to do with his discovery of Linda Jackson's body. It's possible that the person who murdered Linda also targeted Dorien because of his discovery. In this scenario, the motive would have likely been revenge. This theory has also never been substantiated. The final theory is that an opportunistic kidnapper targeted Dorien because he was alone that day. While most kidnappings and murders are committed by people who personally know the victim, it's still possible for a true psychopath to target children they don't know. However, this theory has also never been proven. The disappearance of Dorien Thomas is still a creepy, unsolved mystery, and it doesn't seem likely that this will ever change. Hopefully it does in the near future, but until then, his kidnapper roams free. On February 8th of 2019, 41-year-old Icelandic poker player Jon Jonsson took a flight to Dublin, Ireland in order to participate in a poker tournament. He planned to spend the rest of his time after the tournament with his fiancée as a vacation. Jon was described as a nice, caring, reliable, and stable guy by one of his brothers. He arrived in Dublin on his own and checked into the Bonington Hotel in the northern part of the city, which was where the tournament would be hosted. That night, Jon was happy and played throughout the evening. An eyewitness reported that despite losing €4,000, Jon was in good form and high spirits. Jon was not only in high spirits, but he also consumed his fair share of spirits. Witnesses stated that they were shocked he could still stand with how much he had drank. Regardless, Jon went to bed and everything seemed normal. His fiancée, Jana, arrived the next morning at around 10 o'clock and found Jon asleep in their room. They talked for a short while before Jana went downstairs to fetch coffee. While his fiancée was getting caffeinated, Jon unexpectedly left the hotel at 11:05 a.m. His phone, wallet, and passport were all still in the hotel room, and it's unclear why he decided to leave. The only thing he took with him was the hotel keycard. At 11:07 a.m., a CCTV camera captured Jon walking past a pub and a nursing home, then going down Swords Road toward Collins Avenue. He was later captured by a surveillance camera walking past Highfield Health Center. This was the last time anyone would ever see Jon Jonsson. Jana became concerned when her fiancé failed to show up at the hotel. When the next morning rolled around and he was still nowhere to be found, she reported him missing to the Gardaí, the Irish National Police. When they found out that Jon was missing, his family flew to Dublin immediately to help with the search effort. Jon's family, the Gardaí, and civil defense workers conducted a large-scale search for the missing poker player, but nothing was found. All they had to go on was the CCTV footage, which showed Jon behaving leisurely and relaxed. He was smoking a cigarette and walking casually, not giving off any signs of distress or paranoia. Nobody followed him, and nobody was with him. However, his family did not believe he had disappeared intentionally. He had recently renewed his taxi license back home in Iceland, and there were several family functions coming up that he had seemed enthusiastic about. Furthermore, one of his brothers stated that Jon had always been open and honest about his financial situation and would have asked for support if he had been struggling. With no evidence or leads, Jon's case quickly went cold. It would be almost a full year before a new update would come to light. In 2020, a man who was serving a sentence in an Icelandic prison contacted Jon's family with an intriguing, albeit disturbing, piece of information. According to this man, the €4,000 that Jon had lost playing poker the night before his disappearance had actually belonged to an Icelandic crime boss who had been visiting Dublin at the time. Jon had allegedly met this man in order to get more money, but the interaction became violent when the man learned that Jon had lost his money. After accidentally killing Jon, the man had buried his body in a nearby park. In February of 2024, the Gardaí closed off the park in question and conducted a search of the grounds. They found nothing of significance to the case, and it seems as if the tip was no good. David Carl Wium, one of Jon's brothers, thanked the Gardaí for handling Jon's case so seriously and for following up on the tip. As it turns out, the Gardaí and a local priest had both received anonymous letters that corroborated the tip from the Icelandic prison inmate, and the authorities urged the author of the letters to come forward with whatever information they may know. As of now, Jon Jonsson's disappearance is still unsolved, but it's recent enough that this may change at some point in the near future. Hopefully, the person or people responsible for making him vanish will be brought to justice. "33-year-old Martha Evans was known as Marty by many of her friends and family members. While not much is known for certain about her personality, she has many loved ones who miss her very sorely to this day, over 30 years after her disappearance. Based on that fact alone, it seems likely that Marty was a kind and caring woman who put a lot of effort into those relationships. On February 10th of 1990, Marty attended her friend's wedding at the High Climber Room Lounge in Napa, Oregon. Marty was a bridesmaid in the ceremony and was undoubtedly excited about the event and ecstatic to be playing such an important role. At one point during the night, Marty placed her purse in the trunk of the bride's car and then told her that she needed to make a quick trip to Warrenton, Oregon in order to pick something up. She said that she would return within the hour. Despite this strange turn of events, the bride gave Marty permission to take care of whatever it was she needed to do. Marty left the wedding at around 9:30 p.m., her purse still sitting in the trunk of her friend's car. On the night in question, Marty was not driving her own vehicle, but rather a 1984 brown Ford Ranger that she had borrowed. It's unclear exactly who she borrowed the car from. Most likely it was somebody at the wedding, but it's also possible that she borrowed it before the wedding from someone who didn't attend. At any rate, the car was riddled with dents, had a 7-Up sticker in one of the windows, and had an Oregon license plate. All of this to say that the vehicle was extremely recognizable. Shortly after she left the wedding venue, Marty was seen by a witness at a gas station just outside Astoria, Oregon. She was on the payphone and appeared to be very upset. This chance sighting would end up being the last time Marty was ever seen. When she failed to return to the wedding, Marty's family attempted to report her missing, but the police appeared to believe that she had left of her own accord. If this were the case, they couldn't open an investigation, seeing as Marty was a legal adult. However, this line of reasoning doesn't exactly add up. Marty had been wearing a bridesmaid dress and had left her purse and all other belongings behind at the wedding venue. If she had been running away willingly, it seems extremely unlikely that she would have done it in this manner. It took 15 years for Marty's disappearance to finally be taken seriously. A missing persons report was filed in 2005 when Detective Matt Beeson took on her case. Due to the 15-year delay in the investigation, Marty's case almost immediately went cold. Whatever evidence could have existed back in 1990 was certainly no longer available in 2005. Detective Beeson could hardly do anything to find out what happened to the missing bridesmaid. The only course of action he was able to take was retrieving DNA samples from Marty's family members in order to compare them to any bodies that might be discovered in the future. There is one main theory in this case that seems extremely likely to be the truth. According to Oregon locals, Napa and Warrenton are about 20 miles apart, which constitutes a roughly 35-minute drive. Furthermore, Napa is located on the southern bank of the Columbia River, while Warrenton is a small coastal city surrounded by water. This theory suggests that Marty likely got into an accident while driving, and her car took a plunge into the water, which resulted in her death. The cause of the crash could have been anything from her heightened emotions sparking reckless driving to dangerous road conditions. In any event, Marty and the borrowed vehicle have never been found. Until they are, this theory remains speculation, but hopefully that will change in time. In January of 1989, the Askew family moved to Tasmania in order to escape the chaotic hustle and bustle of their previous life in New South Wales. They had 3 children, their son Jacob Askew, their 14-year-old daughter Eve Askew, and another son whose name I could not find. Eve was described as reserved and shy, the type of girl who did not interact with others if she didn't have to. Jacob stated that, inside the family, she seemed quite confident and quite adventurous as well. She liked to do different things like bush hiking and climbing, and she loved wrestling as well. In fact, she loved wrestling so much that she used it as a defense tactic against bullies in school. I remember when she was in year 5 or 6, she came home and she was like, Jake, something really exciting happened at school today. And it was like, oh, what happened, Eve? The school bully stole my basketball, so I chased him down and I wrestled him to the ground and I got my basketball back. And my mom's like, that's it, no more wrestling. However, despite her prowess in wrestling, Eve didn't like to be noticed, especially in school. Some of her classmates can remember seeing her walking down the hallway with her hair covering her face because she simply didn't want anyone to notice her. She also didn't make many friends at school and would avoid interacting with her classmates. Due to this sort of behavior, Eve unfortunately became a target for bullying. She would be verbally harassed, although there aren't any accounts of her being physically attacked, which is likely because of her wrestling skills. Like all children, Eve also got into trouble on a few occasions. At one point, her parents found cigarettes in her bag. Eve denied that she smoked, but her diary suggested otherwise. Jacob has since stated that this incident is the only time he can remember when Eve actually did something bad. According to him, she wasn't a risk taker or a troublemaker. She had simply made a bad decision due to her immaturity at the time. On November 17th of 1991, Eve's parents were at a church meeting while her brothers stayed up watching TV. Eve herself was in her bedroom listening to music. Throughout the night, her brothers saw her a few times coming and going from her room, using the bathroom or grabbing a drink. They said that she had been in a good mood and there was nothing out of the ordinary. When Eve's parents finally returned home, they went to bed without checking on the kids. They assumed their children had all gone to bed and were asleep, and there was nothing out of place that would have warranted concern. However, when they got up the next morning, they realized that Eve was nowhere to be seen. She had simply vanished. There were no signs of a struggle or violence of any kind anywhere in the house. Due to the lack of evidence of foul play, the police believed that Eve had run away. They cited the diary entries about Eve's smoking habits as a motive. She had been grounded by her parents for smoking, which could have made her want to leave the house in order to escape the punishment. In the days immediately following Eve's disappearance, the police received numerous reports of sightings of the missing girl in New Norfolk, Glenorchy, and Hobart. Unfortunately, none of these sightings were ever confirmed to be Eve. It's unclear how the investigation went after these sightings, but it was eventually closed due to a lack of leads. Tragically, Eve's parents died in a car crash in 1996 without ever finding out what happened to their little girl. The case was reopened in 2001 when the authorities received a tip from a man who was in police custody at the time. There had been reports that this man may have been involved in Eve's disappearance, and, under his direction, the police excavated the property surrounding the Askew family home. This effort turned up nothing, and it's never been confirmed whether or not the man in question was actually responsible for Eve's disappearance. The case was closed yet again after this failed search effort. In 2012, Eve's case was given to Detective Inspector Colin Riley, who sparked numerous fresh efforts, including digs of various suspected grave sites. At one point, the police seized the property of a man who lived 20 minutes away from the Askew residence. This man had allegedly befriended Eve in the months leading up to her disappearance, and he was considered a person of interest in her case. When Detective Riley asked the man if he had met up with Eve prior to her disappearance, he claimed that he couldn't remember. Nothing was found on his property, so the police seized a second property that the man owned. This second property contained a septic tank, which became the main focus of the investigation. In an interview about the investigation, Detective Riley stated that, "We've detected things that we believe can possibly be used as evidence in court." However, nothing came of this. The man was arrested, but later released without being charged. There is one main theory in Eve's disappearance, which is that she met with foul play. According to this theory, someone most likely offered to help her run away from home, but they had their own sinister agenda. Sadly, Eve has never been found, and her case remains a mystery to this day. Jacob believes his sister was abducted and murdered by someone, and he still maintains hope that the perpetrator will be caught. He will strike again. It will happen, and the next time it's going to be your family. It's going to be someone close to you. So come forward, protect your own family, and let's get this person behind bars where he belongs.